Hi everybody, welcome back to this INDESIGN class. So in the last lesson I showed you how to create a new file, so how to set a new document, and then we saw how to save it and the different options that we have. So how did we do that? First of all, we created a new file from here, new file. And then here, remember, on the right side I have all these settings I can set for my document. And here on the left, I have some tabs that can help me to choose the right document, the right size. Also depending on my intent. So if I want to create print or some web or mobile documents. So for example, now let's create a simple A4 size. So with these measures and millimeters. Portrait orientation. Let's create, for example, a document of 4 facing pages, 1 column, the margin set up 12.7, it's okay. Bleed area, I would say, let's set 3 millimeters, okay, perfect. And then down here we have the slack area, which is an area that's not going to be printed, where you can put all your informations and instructions for the documents. Let's not gonna create one for now, and let's go on create. Here we are. Here on the right side we have the pages panel, which we can drag out and put it here, so we can always see what happens. So we have 4 facing pages. We also talked a bit about the apparent pages, so the master pages, but again we will see them further in the next videos. Okay, so here we are with our new document. Now, if we want to save it, we have to go up here on File. And then, as we already saw, we have 2 options here, Save or Save As. So the Save options will just save my INDESIGN file as it is, since last changes I made. And the Save As, let's look at it. So for the Save As option, we have actually 3 other options. So the first one is the default option, the one we're gonna usually use. The INDESIGN template option is for those who have already some settings. And then the last one is for who has an INDESIGN CS4 or later versions. So for those who need an IDML file. And remember, if we save it as a document or as a template, we're not gonna see the difference. So technically it's the same. And last but not least, we have this option here that's gonna save the images in our document as preview. So even if someone doesn't have the images that are in the document, he can still see them. Okay, let's go back here and let's start with today's lesson. Alright, so we can close this panel and put it right back here. In today's lesson, we are going to talk about those tools that help us to lay out the document. So I'm talking about those tools we can find here on the left side down here, View Options. If we click on it, we're going to have this menu that shows us these tools. So rulers, guides, smart guides, baseline grid, frame edges, and also something we can find up here on View, Grids and Guides, and here it is, a menu full of these tools. Okay, let's begin with order. So let's go back here on View Options. First of all, by clicking on them, we can activate them or hide them. For example, now that we have a check sign, we can see the rulers. If I click on it, look, the rulers disappeared. So let's activate them again because they're useful. Now, let's see frame edges. They have a check sign on it, next to it, but we can't see them. That's because the frame edges are those boxes that wrap something. So for example, a text box. If I click on a type tool here we are, we have a box. Let's first increase the font size. Okay. Now let's click something inside, for example, frame edges, and here we are, we have a text box. Now we see this box because we have activated the frame edges. If I click here, the box disappears. And if I go on it with my arrow here, I see it again. So I will suggest you to keep them activated because they're useful, and this way you can always know where the box is, how big it is, so let's keep it activated. Same things, for example, we have with the image boxes. So let's open a picture. From File, Place, let's select the picture we want to open and open. So as we did for the text box, let's click and drag. So again, we see the frame edge of the image. If we go back here and check this one, now I don't see it anymore. You see, if I go on the picture, I see the blue line all around it. But just if I am on the picture. Okay, now. So now we have the rulers here, which we can easily see them in the workspace. As we see now, they are millimeters. If I right click on them, here it is, a menu is gonna pop up, and we can, for example, change from millimeters to centimeters or pixels, or for example, if you're working with mobile or web documents, in pixel. Now we are not, so let's go back on millimeters. Okay. An important shortcut for the rulers is this one, Ctrl+R, which allows us to show them and hide them quickly. Now, a very important thing we can do with the rulers is that if we click on them and drag out, we can create the guides, both here and from the left. And these are really, really important because they really help us to lay out our document. So for example, to lay out the text boxes or the images boxes also, and all the elements we have opened in our document. We can drag them as many as we want, and if we click on one, press Alt and then drag it from here, we just duplicate all the guides. So I suggest you also to remember this one because it's really helpful. It's kind of a shortcut because it allows us to take as many guides as we want quickly. We can also, of course, set them in another way by going up here, Layout, Create Guides. So as we see now, we have this menu where we can set how many rows or columns do we want and the distance between them. So for example, let's create 7 rows and 7 columns. We can also check this box that says Remove Existing Ruler Guides. This way it's going to remove these guides that we just created and it's not going to be messy. So let's check this. And before pressing OK, we can also preview these settings we've chosen. And here it is. So 7 columns, 7 rows, and this is the gutter between them. We can also reduce it. And then as soon as we're satisfied with our settings, let's press OK. So now, of course, we can also hide them from here by clicking on the voice guides. Or we can also do it with the shortcut I showed you in the first video, W from the keyboard. Alright, now if we zoom a bit in, if we click on a guide and then right click on it, we see a little menu opening up. So here we can cut, copy and paste it. We can decide which kind of guide type we want, for example the ruler guide, the one we already have, or the liquid one. And then we can customize it a bit, so change the color for example and choose a brick red, and also we can define which zoom level we're gonna see it. So for example, if we set 25% and we zoom out, when we are at 20% level of zoom, we're not gonna see it anymore. And if we now zoom in again, here it is, our brick red line. Again, we can hide them or lock them. So for example, if I lock this guide, I will not be able to move them around anymore. I can even select them, you see? Nothing happens. but don't you worry, we can easily unlock them by right-clicking on the document, grids and guides, lock guides, and here we are. Now I can select them again. Alright, so as you saw, we're gonna have different menus every time we click on a different things, on a different element. So for example, if I select a guide and click on it, I will have this menu. If I just click on the document, I have this other menu. And of course, it's gonna change again once I right click on the image or the text. Alright, so if we go back here on the view option menu, below the guides voice, I have smart guides. Even though they are checked, we don't see them. That's because we just see them while, for example, we select an element of the document and we move it around. So you see this green line, for example, or the pink one. So the smart guides are those who help me while I am moving around elements through the document. So they help me to lay out the document. So for example, this green line that just showed, it's helping me to put the image box at the same level of the text box. Or again, this pink one right here is now helping me to locate the picture exactly in the middle of the page of the document. So you see, I don't really set them or customize them, but they just here in the document helping me to lay out all the elements I have. Alright, let's see what else we have here. So baseline grid. Let's check the voice. And as you can see now, it's a grid made just with rows, unlike the guides grid we've just created. Let's see now what happens if I just zoom out. As you see now, I'm 60% of zoom level and I don't see the baseline grid anymore. That's because, as we already saw this before with the guideline, the baseline grid is set a low zoom level. Of course, we can change it. We have to go on Edit up here, Preferences, and Grids. So as you probably remember, we already saw this Preferences menu. And as I told you already, we can make our preference changes and where we can customize some elements or tools. So here we are, the grids section and guides and pastebar section. So in the grid section, we have the baseline grid, so the one we just opened. And here it is, the view threshold. So if we set it at 12.5% and go to OK, so we're gonna see it even if we zoom out a lot, till we reach a lower level than 12.5%. But I mean, you probably don't need it to set it even lower, but you can always do it easily from here. So Edit, Preferences, and here you can choose the section and or the tool you want to customize. Alright, now we can also hit the other guide in order just to see the baseline grid. So let's go here and let's check the guide's voice. This way is not as messy as before. And if you've noticed, we didn't just hit the light blue guides, but also the margins and the bleed area. That's because they're also guides. So they're also like those elements, those tools that help us to lay out our document. Alright, so let's show the last grid we have here on InDesign. But we don't find it here. We have to go up here on View, under the voice, Grid and Guides. Here it is, Document Grid. So let's click on Show Document Grid. And here it is. So as we see, it's another kind of grid. It has rows and columns, and it extends through all the workspace. So if we zoom in, we can see that the box image, it doesn't really snap with the grid. It doesn't really align to it. If you go back on View, we see that we have this voice here, Snap to Document Grid. If we check it, we will see now, for example, that if we move this box image, for example, and we go here, we can see that this way we can perfectly align the box image to the document grid. You see the little snap here? So kind of a useful tool because he definitely make it easier for us to move the elements we have here. So this picture, for example, through the document grid. Alright, so for this lesson it's all. I hope you were able to follow me and to get how this tool works, because they're really useful and kind of important when we're working on InDesign. In the next lesson, we're talking about the Pages panel that I already showed you, but we're gonna go deeper on it, and I'm gonna tell you everything there's to know about it, so it's not gonna be a secret to you anymore. So stay tuned. I hope to see you all in the next lesson. Bye bye, everybody.